All right. What's up, guys? What is up? We have a killer episode for you tonight. Got one of my good friends here with us, and but if you don't know, I am Colin Burnett.
That's right, Colin. We have a heck of a show tonight with a great guest, man. But first, we have to talk about one of our sponsors. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Firefly Outdoor and Marine, the number one navigational lights on the water. What separates Firefly from all the rest? Well, first, we have to talk about their globe, a high quality, innovative, infracting plastic exclusive to Firefly, reducing glare by over 95%, cutting down eye blindness that you receive with other typical LED lights, giving you the perception as if you're fishing under a full moon. They're offered in a camo, diamond, and a flex series, as well as a junior diamond series for smaller applications. Also, check out their all new Shore Stacker box. Make nighttime fishing more enjoyable. Plus, their newly released TEP series and Mizu foul weather bibs and jackets. Be seen with Firefly Outdoor and Marine. Go to www.fireflymarine.com. Don't forget, make sure to use that discount code DECktop10 at checkout for instant savings. Again, that's fireflymarine.com. Use that discount code DECktop10 for your instant discount at checkout.
That's right, guys. Make sure you definitely hit that discount code. And I'm sorry I forgot to put the discount code on there, but it is Deck Talk 10, capital D, Deck Talk 10. But guys, if let's get this show on the road. I have the honor to be able to say that we've got a good friend of mine, good buddy, spent a lot of time out on the boat with each other. And so, I mean, it is a joy to have him on the podcast. But if you don't know this guy, you are missing out. We have one of the best guides in Chattanooga on the episode tonight, Josh Antwine. What's up, brother?
How's it going, fellas?
What's up,
Happy
man?
to be here.
Yeah, Colin said he has the honor and privilege of introducing you. I have the honor and privilege of sitting right next to you in the studio here. What's going on, Josh?
Oh, not much. Happy to be here.
That's
Colin
awesome.
should be here with us, but he's back in Georgia.
I'm telling you,
Colin couldn't make the trip over. I think Colin's wife had a little bit to do with that.
no, I tell you what had to do with it was being at work at 10 o'clock and then slinging Little Debbie's from about 2 o'clock this morning.
That's not
So
what she said.
that nap that I took once I got back kind of kicked me in the rear end.
Michelle said she didn't get a chance to see you all day, so you're not going anywhere.
Nah, I ain't worried about that. But we do have Jamie Jones on. What's up, brother? He's saying, "What's up, guys?"
What's going on, Jamie?
What's up?
Big shout out to Jamie also. Jamie actually really came through for us on that benefit we done for autism anglers a couple weeks ago. Basically cooked all of our fish that we had there for the day. So shout out to Jamie Jones as well. Great job. And, thank you along with everybody else that helped also. Yeah. And I don't have a list of names in front of me, so I don't want to start naming people because I know we're going to forget somebody. But being that Jamie's on here, shout out to Jamie for the help he gave us at that.
Well, also, I mean, Josh donated some hats and stuff like that.
Josh donated hats, and he also donated some of the crappie that Jamie Jones actually was able to cook up for us.
So I know one thing, Josh. My little nephew loves that hat. He wears that sucker everywhere he goes, and he says, "This is my buddy from the fishing store."
Yeah. I got a picture of that the first day he wore it. That was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, Josh, let's get going, brother.
All right.
If you do not know Josh, he is like the Nickajack king over here, and he does not like to boast or to brag or anything like that. But when you Jamie says it was his pleasure and it was a great event. But uh, if you've been out in the boat with Josh, you know that I mean he always puts his clients on some fish, um, and but they're not just little fish either. I mean, I know you've helped me break my PB twice within a matter of 10 minutes, and
Yep,
but
I was there.
yeah, I was rubbing that one in. But yeah, guys. But I want to say though, man, Josh, I want to say thanks to you because you have certainly helped me out. Because, like I've told you before, like I've never really fished for the brown fish. I've always fished for the green ones, and you have helped me out so much with being able to find the fish, being able to, I mean, it's one thing to be able to find them. It's another thing to be able to put them in the boat.
Right. Yeah,
And
those smallmouth are tough. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. So, but you've helped me out. So, Josh, thanks so much for all that you have done. And and I tell you, we have had some trips that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Going
Absolutely.
out in your boat, and uh, I mean, it's just been a pleasure to have to be able to share a boat with you. It has been an honor.
You
So
actually
But
caught
yeah,
your first, you actually caught your first A-rig fish with Josh too,
oh yeah,
yeah,
that
that's a fun one.
and now you're catching them on, and that kind of goes to show you there. And Josh could relate to this that you know, no matter what you're throwing, it's a confidence thing. If you have
For sure.
and if you don't have confidence in a certain rig, typically all it takes is catching one fish to
Yeah,
get that confidence,
getting a few bites for sure.
get that mental state, and then it's just off the charts after that. And I think after Colin caught that one fish with that A
it
rig,
was lights on. I went for the
it was
next
like
two
that
weeks
after that.
throwing it.
Well, Colin, you've actually shared a boat with me by letting me use your boat for 6 weeks, and then no,
Hey, but that's I mean again we've talked about that and but Ricky Murphy, what is up, brother?
Yeah, Ricky.
that's another guy who knows Nickajack
Yeah,
really, really well.
he knows Nickajack. But let's talk a little bit about some smallmouth, Josh. I know if I have any questions, you're the person that I'm going to on smallmouth
Absolutely.
and on a lot of different things, but especially smallmouth. I tell people that he's my northern southern friend, and so
Hey,
but
did you see the got to rep the Michigan jacket today?
yeah,
Go Blue.
he's repping that blue and gold, and maybe 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 they won't have too much trouble in the playoffs.
Yeah, we probably will. That's okay.
But what is has the smallmouth? Are they still deep, or have they moved back shallow?
That's been the toughest thing probably for about the last month because any of you guys who have been out on the river know that right now they're just being weird with the current. So one of the main things that's tough on us when we're fishing for those smallmouth is they relate to the current, and the people who operate the dam couldn't care less about us wanting to fish down there. So like today, that started a foot high, and by the time I left, it was a foot low, and but a lot of the fish are wanting to move. They're wanting to get up shallow. We've been catching them pretty well recently. Just throwing a lot of moving baits and finding the bait fish right now has been the key for those bigger smallmouth.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I know everyone's got their opinion on the live scope, but we won't get into it. But a lot of them I'm not even seeing on the live scope until they're about to bite, and so you don't really have to pay attention much to it because they're so stuck to the bottom that you're not really seeing them until they go to bite, and then 3 or 4 of them will come up off the bottom, and so that's been an interesting few weeks, but a lot of it is just slowing down, being confident in the area that you're in. With those smallmouth, if you catch one, there's plenty more around, and it's just about staying confident.
Yeah. Now with the smallmouth, with your largemouth this time of the year, you're always going to have certain bigger largemouth that's resident in offshore fish.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what rule of thumb fish, your rule of thumb is this time of the year the fish transition shallower, but with largemouth you're always going to have resident fish that no matter what there's going to be fish that live offshore
Right.
because there's certain things that hold them out there that they don't really need to go inside.
Exactly.
Is smallmouth kind of the same way this time of the year when everybody's talking about fish moving in with smallmouth? Do you find resident smallmouth fish that stay offshore?
Yeah, so that's something, the river is a little different than a lot of smallmouth fisheries in that it's narrow, so these fish don't have a super far way to travel to get offshore. But what I've always found on Nickajack is that these fish are super nomadic. So I don't think any of them are really resident to where they're at.
Right.
You've got fish that'll probably spawn in the same areas. I've showed you guys a lot of the areas that I find them spawning year after year, and but no, a lot of these fish are gonna just follow where the food source is, and as the water gets colder, they're gonna be moving around a lot more, and then when it gets really cold, they'll kind of find an area during the winter that they want to set up. But the one thing that's important is just following that current. When the river raises, we're getting into flood season. When the river comes up, those fish are going to push even shallower. And then when that river comes down, or if we have lower current, the fish, if you're not getting bit in areas that you normally would fish, that doesn't mean those fish aren't there. That means they've probably just pushed back a little bit. And what I like to do when that water comes down is if there's an area I was catching them and they're not biting there, I find the first structure more towards the middle of the river from where they were, and that's usually a lot of times where they're going to set back up until that water raises back up and gets flowing again.
Yeah, that and that's what kind of with me. That was one thing that you had told me, because I love it when we have a flooded lake or flooded river, and I mean I'd rather it be up in the bushes, and but and I've talked to you like, man, I'm struggling out here, and uh and you said just like what you were talking about was like it is all the current related. I mean, even we realized that even more so this past summer.
Mm-hmm.
That I mean, this past summer, I mean, it was hard, and just because we did not, I mean, we didn't have the current like we did even here last year to a couple years ago and stuff like that. Just we we used to be able to set the clock at 10 o'clock, and we know that we're going to start getting some current,
Right.
and so it was just kind of just a countdown. Just all right, I want waiting on 10, and then you're about to go tear some smallmouths up.
Yep. And you could, like you said, you could almost watch it day by day. It's like, okay, it's going to be 6 inches low when I first get there, and by 9, it's going to be up a little, and then in the afternoon, it's going to be ripping, and then they'll slow it down in the evening. It was just same every single day. You're absolutely right, and that's gone. We don't have that anymore.
Yeah, and I really don't know why they that it really, because I haven't heard any reason why they did not push the current. I mean, I know that we really didn't get as much rain as what we typically do in the summertime, but
Right.
it still shouldn't have mattered. I wouldn't think that it wouldn't. We didn't get that much difference where we were in a drought or nothing like that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Someone a lot smarter than me makes those decisions. I just go fishing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I fish what's in front of me.
Now, when you're out there, let's say we're fishing for smallmouth, do your setups, are you typically a spinning rod setup or are you a bait caster setup?
That definitely depends. I'd say, springtime, it's a lot of finesse stuff when those fish kind of get on bed. And then even into the summer, getting offshore and stuff like that, we're dragging a lot of finesse stuff. Um, but there's always a reason to have a bait caster in your hand. And then from now till probably March or whenever these fish decide to fully start spawning, we'll mostly have a bait caster in our hand, throwing moving baits and a little bit bigger profile stuff. Because the colder the water gets, the more those smallmouth don't want to chase around those little 2-inch bait fish anymore. They want to have an easier meal, and they want to eat once or twice a day.
And that also is dependent on your clients too.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
in a lot of cases, you might not have the clients on board that could handle a bait caster too.
Right.
So
That does
it
happen.
just depends on your clients as far as what rod you're going to put in their hands.
Yep, for
Yeah.
sure.
Now, have you noticed, like, because I've noticed on Chick, like, let's say 4 to 5 years ago, we didn't want to throw nothing smaller than a 4-inch swim bait. Now, we're throwing a 2.8, a 3.3.
Right.
Have you noticed on Nickajack as well that the bait size has shrunk? That they're
Yeah, that's something. I don't know if he's watching or not, but Zach, old ZK, as most people know him, but he actually kind of helped me with that a little bit because he catches his own bait real well and stuff. And when we go out during the early spring, so February, March, those bait fish are huge,
yeah.
and then pretty much the rest of the year they are pretty small. And so it seems like really the best time of year to get on them on the smaller baits is anything but that early spring, like late winter probably. But I definitely think that the bait fish are small. The one thing with Nickajack especially, and this is something that I don't share with a lot of people. You guys know, but the crawdads are a lot smaller on Nickajack. So a lot of people want to throw a big giant, crawdad imitator, but the further north you get on the river, the smaller those crawfish get. I don't know what it is that stunts them. I've got a ton of pictures on my phone of little crawdad pinchers, and you catch a 4 or 5 pound smallmouth, and it's got a little 2-inch crawdad in its mouth.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely that for me more than the bait fish is the thing that I've noticed that's smaller on Nickajack is the crawfish.
Now you're sharing it with the world.
So there you go. There's a tip for anybody watching. Downsize your crawfish imitators.
Now, so you said that like you're going to be throwing as it's getting colder and stuff. You're going to be throwing more of like a crankbaits or moving baits.
Mm-hmm.
So does that consist of like a fritz side and stuff like that, or square bill and stuff? Is that what you're?
Yeah, that really just kind of depends on the day. If the fish are up real shallow, or if I feel like we're getting bit a little bit shallower, we'll definitely go to something like maybe even a DT6 or like an OG Slim from Rapala, something like that. But if they're kind of backed off a little bit, we'll be throwing a little bit deeper diving or Alabama rig, which is super common around on the Tennessee River. But just stuff that's gonna have the right profile and get bit. And sometimes they want it, just dragging on the bottom, scraping on the bottom, and sometimes they want it to where you can't even get your bait down to the bottom. This just really depends on kind of the mood. Smallmouth are the most moody of all the bass species, for sure.
Yeah. Now, how about the blade baits? You actually turned me on to a blade bait that I've been using quite a bit out there. But typically, is that just kind of coming in where the blade baits are actually gonna start putting out a little bit more? Or,
yeah, for sure.
Do they work at all during the summertime, or this time of the year? Pretty much summertime, just put them away.
Yeah, I mean, whenever the fish are schooling up on bait fish, a blade bait can catch them.
Yeah.
And that's any body of water you go to, a blade bait's a good bait to throw. I know there's a lot of other guys who utilize it a lot. But yeah, for me, it's always been the colder the water, the better the blade bait does. It's got a lot tighter wobble. And then, I mean, you can even fish it similar to a rattle trap. You know, you don't have to yo-yo it. You can throw it and fish it like a rattle trap and still catch them really well.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's the blade bait is one that's. I mean, as soon as you start cranking, you're feeling that vibration. I
Mhm.
mean, if you don't feel that vibration, you just get it in as quick as possible,
Yeah.
and fix whatever the issue is, because more than likely the hook's tied or wrapped around the line or something
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
but so you said something about an A rig, and I want to kind of brag on you a little bit. Norman said something earlier about it, but guys, I had thrown an A rig, and I can't tell you how many times I've thrown it, and I would get so mad because I'm like, man, I see everybody else getting hit on these A rigs and catching fish, doubling up, sometimes tripling up, and I'm like, and I can't even do nothing wrong or nothing right. I guess I was doing everything wrong until I went on the boat and I told Josh, hey, I want to learn how to throw an A rig. And well, I don't want you to tell anybody or like to say any kind of like the techniques or anything like that, because I want people that if you want to learn the proper way how to use an A rig, how to adjust, because I was noticing that like before I went out with you that, and I told you before, like I'd see that it instead of coming out like just coming straight out, that it would lean to one side or the other, and so I mean you showed me how to like to tune it up and stuff like that. I guess that's a word to say for it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, for
Fine
sure.
tune it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
and
definitely that's one of those baits that I think the most fun thing about it is that there's endless possibilities of size of swim baits, colors, retrieves, all that kind of stuff. It's an absolute blast, and it's one of those baits that just because you're not getting bit on it doesn't mean they're not biting it. It could be just a subtle change that you got to make.
yeah,
And I had a trip a couple weeks ago where I had rigged up an A rig for myself and for my client, and he was absolutely wearing them out. And the one I had rigged up for myself that looked just a little bit different than his, I think I got one bite on it the whole day. So it definitely matters how you got a rig for sure.
now and I was surprised though that like how subtle that bite really is. And it's because I'm thinking, all right, they're gonna come, and I've seen like when they're like bombarding and like going after some bait fish, it's vicious,
Yeah,
but that the bite on an A rig was very subtle, and it was like, and it was just a little bit different. I mean, it was, I mean, a little harder than a crappie bite, but that's the kind
right.
of feel that I had that you was telling me. It's like, hey, it's just any kind of difference that it is, that was a bite.
Yeah,
And um,
yeah,
so I want I want people to go to get out on the boat with you, and um, if they're wanting to learn how to properly throw an A rig and set it up and find out what rods that you're using it on, the line and everything, to know what and how to properly have one rigged up on their boat, uh, they need to hop out on a boat with you and find that out. I mean, because to me, that was valuable information that you showed me. That I mean, how I look at it is I learn better if I have somebody there talking to me. If I see it working, if you was to tell me like, hey, you need to do this, you need to move this one out a little bit. If it's turning to the right, move this. I'm gonna be like, what in the world are you talking about?
And
But
that's
I mean,
another thing too, Colin. You just kind of hinted on it there. A lot of people don't realize, and this doesn't only go with A rigs. This goes with other baits as well. Your tools that you use to throw a certain lure, meaning your rod, your reel speed,
absolutely,
what rod you throw it on, is a big key.
for sure.
Not only on the A rig, but no matter what kind of bait you're throwing, to the success of being able to be successful with a certain bait. So you can't, if you get out there trying to learn how to throw an A rig, book this man and he will hook you up and show, because you can get out there and throw the A rig all day long, but if you're not throwing it on the right rod, the right length rod, the right weight rod, the right reel, the right retrieve, you're not really going to be able to fish it successfully.
Right.
And that doesn't only go for the A rig. That goes for no matter what you're throwing. You know, your tools are key on what you're using to throw the bait with as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For
So
sure.
Kim says, "What's up, guys? Jack's Bait and Tackle highly recommends Chattahookem fishing charters."
What's up, Cam?
I gotta give Kim a shout out because she was one of the first people when I first got into guiding. Um, I had actually gone out. I mentioned Zach earlier. I'd gone out with him and his buddy, and Kim just said, "Hey, come in. I want to meet you." And I went in. I met her, and after that one conversation, she was willing to let me put my cards out at Jack's. So if you want a card, there at Jack's. And then she also she's just been a huge supporter, and I've gotten a lot of trips through her, and she's never asked for anything in return. She loves the fishing community. She loves all the guys that try and make a living at this, and so just want to make sure that she knows she's appreciated. Yeah. So thanks again, Kim.
Kim's a
Yeah.
great lady, and Chuck and everybody down there at Jack's Bait and Tackle as well. And you know, if you're in the Chattanooga area or the Southeast Tennessee area, hitting these lakes, and you're from out of town, you're not familiar with the area, make sure if you need some last minute supplies, go by and check Jack's Bait and Tackle out there on 4228 Bonnie Oaks Boulevard or at Drive, I think it is, there in Chattanooga, and go see Kim and her staff, and they'll get you hooked up. Very, very good people, very, very well stocked bait store.
She's always got a fishing report.
Yeah.
Always. And
And follow her on social media on her Facebook too. Kim does she very seldom misses a night neither. At the end of the day, she's always going to come on with a live report on how the day went, a little bit of a fishing report insight, basically. Typically once a night. So
well, speaking of like your business cards, Josh, can you tell people where they can find you to excuse me, to book a trip?
Yeah. So I've got Facebook, Instagram, Chattahookem Fishing, um, Chattahookem Fishing Charters, and then also like I said, business cards at Jack's Bait and Tackle, and then also you can go to ChattahookumFishingCharters.com and you can get in touch with me through there, and then email as well. Chattahookem@gmail.com. That's another way to get a hold of me with any questions. Even if you're just coming into town and want a fishing report, I don't mind helping people out. I just want everyone to catch fish.
Yeah. Just don't call him up or email him asking for wave points.
Yeah, don't ask for the waypoints, but I'll definitely point you in the right direction as best I can.
And I'll tell you one more thing too, and I've had this well documented as well. And Colin, talked about what Josh has done for you, Colin. And I've been guiding now. I think this is going on my 19th year as a guide. Of course, the majority of my guiding's been down in South Florida. And then me and the wife moved up here actually about 3.5 years ago now. But this man here actually, of course, I met you, Josh, through Colin, but this man, knowing I was a guide, actually took me out many times, and we still go out now and just hang out together on the lake from time to time when he's almost booked nonstop. But when he has an off day, he'll call us up, "Hey, want to just go hit the lake?" But there's not too many other guides that, knowing I'm actually a fellow guide, in the business, would take somebody out that's trying to learn a new body of water that I'm going to actually be trying to make a living on as well. Mm-hmm. And this man here, if it wasn't, I'll tell you point blank, and like I say, I've said this many times before, and it's well documented out there, but this man here, if it wasn't for this man sitting next to me here, I would not know near as much. I mean, pretty much everything I know out there on Nickajack now, and is because of this man. So yeah, and I thank him a lot for actually taking me under his wing when I moved to a brand new area, trying to further my guide business, a brand new area, not knowing anything about these lakes up here, and kind of took me under his wing and really helped me out tremendously. So
I've had two. Go ahead.
Michael Lindell says, "Shout out from South Florida Swamp. We use the A rig for peacock bass." That might be something we might want to sneak.
That sounds like a blast.
Sneak on the boat, because I guarantee you, I don't know how many hooks they can have down there, but if it's just three, I guarantee you we're going to come back with three
My,
peacocks.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mike could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think and I don't use a rig that much. I'm fished Florida all my life, but do believe it's 5 in Florida.
And
If I'm
Man,
not mistaken.
can
and
you imagine having five peacocks on an A rig? It's going to destroy an A rig. I'll just say that.
That
Just
might be tough.
I was just say, I'll bet those peacock bass don't hit it too soft either.
Yeah, and Josh is going to be with us in July next
Yeah,
year, so
there
that
you
might
go.
be something we might have to try to throw
Yeah,
down there when we get
sounds
down to
fun.
the
yeah.
break.
Sounds like a blast.
So, my dad says, do the out of towners want to fish Chick or Nick? Are they shocked at the production that comes from fishing Nickajack?
So that the second part of that question, the answer is almost emphatically yes. I get a lot of people that come from out of town, and a lot of them, they ask, can we do Chickamauga? And I always tell them we can, but I think that they'll enjoy the river. And I've got, my spring is getting super full already, and most all of it is from people coming back to fish Nickajack for a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, what time, whatever it is, because it's just, man, it's a productive body of water. There's going to be days where it's more numbers. That's not a secret about Nickajack. You got to find the quality. That's one thing I feel like I've done is I put in the work to be able to find the quality consistently
Yeah.
out there. But yeah, no, a lot of my out of towners, they come and are super super surprised at the production of Nickajack, and then just also the ability to catch all three species of bass with good quality in the same day. Sometimes within 5 feet of each other.
And a
And,
lot
and
of
that's
people,
one thing that's kind of,
a lot of people they want to catch smallmouth
Right.
because it's not a common fish for a lot, especially if you come from down south.
Right, like a
So-
lot of people come up from Florida and
Yeah,
stuff.
smallmouth is a bucket list fish for a lot of guys.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And I mean, and that was one thing that I really enjoy fishing Nickajack is the fact that, I mean, you can get the Tennessee River trifecta, you know, and you can go 100 yards down the river on a drift or even just going down the bank or whatever, and you could catch all three in that 100 yards. And
100%, absolutely.
but another thing too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, is no matter how well you know Chickamauga, Chickamauga could be day to day as far as the productivity you're going to get. Where typically, and not all the time, fishing is fishing, but typically, if you go to Nickajack, you usually could at least catch fish.
Yeah, that's
Where
that's definitely true.
Chickamauga, it could have days where no matter how good you know the lake, you might just get ruined out there.
Yeah, and that's a credit. I'll give a shout out to all the guides who are making a living 100% of the time on Chickamauga because that's not easy. So appreciate those guys, and especially the ones that are willing to share their information with you, because if you can go out on Chickamauga and catch them every single day, then you've got them dialed in. That's definitely true. And I mean, Nickajack, it's it's not one of those lakes you're not going to go every cast, hunt 365 days a year, catch them. But there's definitely the bites are there to be had out on the river for sure.
yeah. Um, so a dude named Matt asked, do you artificial or live bait?
So that is if I get the choice, we're doing our artificial. Every now and again, I'll have a client who will request live bait, which I don't mind. But it is for me, it's almost 100% of the time artificial. There's nothing, I know we got guides that do live bait around here. There's a lot of places in the country that you do mostly live bait guiding. For myself, I just prefer artificial. With that, on that note, if you are looking for some shiners, go get them from Kim, who we talked about earlier, Jack's Bait and Tackle.
Yeah. Now, is that the artificial with you? Because I've never been on a live bait trip with you, but comfortable with you being so comfortable with throwing the artificial and being out on the river throwing, does that come from you living up in Michigan and being and fishing? Uh, like, because you said before that you fish little rivers and stuff like that up there. is that where that comes from, or is it
Yeah.
kind of a learned deal that you've learned from being in this area for so long?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination. So growing up north, like you said, I am a Yankee. But
You said
I said, but yeah. So we fish a lot of smaller bodies of water. We got a lot of smallmouth, and it's like you said, lots of smaller rivers. For me, growing up, if it was 100 feet wide, that was a big river. And so catching smallmouth in that heavy current and just learning how they set up, how they feed, when they feed, kind of what to look for, that definitely helped. But then it's still, fishing down south. One of the biggest differences I tell people all the time is you can be on the water 365 days a year down here. Where I grew up, we had ice on the water 5 months out of the year. So it's like
yeah,
these fish have a time, they get a break from us. Yeah, there's ice fishermen, but that's not near the pressure that these fish. So one of the biggest differences down here is just being able to slow down, pick areas apart, and have confidence that those fish are there, even if you're not getting bit. Because where I came from, if you put it in front of their nose, they're going to bite it. Just plain and simple. So,
But
yeah,
I'm
I
saying,
mean,
speak for yourself. I was already go fishing yesterday till I walked outside.
right,
I'm from Florida.
but
This is
um,
to me.
right.
but you said like, and I want to ask you about it because you said something about kind of breaking a little area down, like
Hmm.
slowing down. So when do you know uh, when to really slow down to when you really need to kind of maybe pick up the pace on what you're doing? Um, how do you decide? All right, I need to slow us down and let's do pick this area apart. So how do you decide that?
So that's one thing. Definitely using the electronics. Not even necessarily the live scope, but like if I graph through an area and I see something I like, I want to fish it. Which for myself it's a little bit different, and for a lot of other guys, we know the body of water we're on so well that that's kind of one of the ways that I can get keyed in. But weather has a lot to do with it too. Like for instance, today it was bluebird skies, no wind. You know, the current was moving in the morning, so I chased some schooling fish to start. But then as that sun comes up, that current slows down a little bit. That for me is the first clue to slow down. If I've got calm day, real sunny, and not a lot of current, that's going to be like that most obvious time that it's time to slow down. And but another thing too, when those fish have moved a little bit off the bank, so summer is a time that I really like to slow down and pick stuff apart. I call it, and I know I've said it with you in the boat a million times, but I like to cover water, or I like to cover water slowly, but I like to fish slowly fast.
Yeah,
So it's that fine line of like, okay, we got to slow down, we got to drag a worm, we got to throw a jig, we got to do something like that, but we're not going to slow the boat down. We're just going to get in these high percentage areas, and we're going to throw these baits that are more finesse style, more slow moving baits, but we're gonna fish them as fast as these fish will allow us to. And there are days where you just got to let it soak. You got to let it sit down there 10, 15 seconds, not move it.
Covering
But
water, but covering it thoroughly.
yeah,
You can cover a lot of water, but you're missing a lot of stuff. But with that being said, you cover a lot of water, but fish it thoroughly,
exactly.
where you're actually picking an area apart, so you're not fishing out of control.
Right.
So you're still getting the same amount of casts if you're moving slow, but it's kind of just like you said, fishing fast but slow.
Yeah.
yeah. Now, which we'll get back onto some smallmouth here in a minute, but I want to talk about the day that you and my dad and I had here a couple weeks ago out on Chick. Now, we didn't catch any smallmouths. We went out there and tore up some crappie.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the days that, like I said earlier, that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. I mean, because I've gone out there and I've caught 120, 150 crappie in a day, but the fish that you had us on was my dad. Sorry, I was looking at my dad. Just asked the question, but the fish you had us on. I mean, there's not too many days that you go out there, especially crappie fishing, and if it's not 12 inches, it's not going in the box.
Right.
And so, I mean, and we got our limit, which we could have had our limit faster, but you're like, hey, I want to try these other areas that I was catching fish on last year just to see if they're up yet on them. And we caught our limit, but I guarantee you, we called 45, 50 of them that were 10 to 12 inches that we just, no, that ain't, and just started pitching them back.
Oh,
So, I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah, that day you're talking about, Colin, I think I called you about something at like 9:30 in the morning, 9:30 or 10, sometime around then, and that's how you guys are doing. You says, well, we just caught a couple so far. We're still searching for them though. And next thing I know, you're coming off the water at like 3:30 in the afternoon, and you're sending me all kinds of pictures. And you sent me a picture of the crappie in a cooler. And I messaged, I don't know if Colin told you this, Josh. I messaged him back and I says, is two or three of those largemouth? Because the way they were positioned, kind of with a couple crappie laying over top of them, they're like 16-inch crappie, but they look long. I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
So I messaged Colin back and I'm like, are some of those about 16-inch largemouth in there? He said, no, dude, they're all crappie.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that was
which
I
my dad caught the biggest crappie of the day, though.
you're like, you didn't have anything. So very
he,
impressive.
he may have been messing with you a
Very,
little
very
bit.
impressive day. Yeah.
Well, that was the funniest story about that is when we got there, Steve, Colin's dad, had said, you need to get him on this podcast at some point. I think that'd be a great episode. Just let him talk for a
I
while.
was going to say, me and Colin can get a word in.
We just sit here.
We just sit back there.
But no, we got there and he said, okay, I want to keep 6, somewhere between 6 and 10 crappie. I want to share with my friend. And I told him, I said, all right, Steve, we could probably have that in about the first 30 minutes. And he just kind of brushed it off. I don't think he believed me. And how long did it take us, Colin? 17 minutes before we had his 10?
Yeah,
something.
we had 10 and 17 minutes.
Yeah, something.
And so, but then after that, the bite really didn't slow down the first place. But you're like, let's go try other places. He says, I want to be able to hit a couple. You had what, 8 or 9 little areas that you wanted us to hit.
Yeah.
And I think we hit what, 4 or 5 of them. We didn't get to.
No, we didn't make it to all of them, which I didn't mind because a couple of them were really good. That's for sure.
So then a question is how long has Josh fished the river? And saying he's no newbie.
That was Steve. That was Colin's dad asking that question, Steve Burnett.
Oh yeah. I mean, pretty much since I moved down here, so going on 15 years now, I've been out there fishing the river. Not as long as some guys, but I feel like I've been out there a really long time, and I've made up the years that I wasn't there in my childhood by being out there as much as I possibly could. Which that's what you and I talk about a lot. Where to me, the best way to get better is be on the water. You can watch as many videos as you want, but until you're out there on the water, you're not getting any better.
And you said it a couple times. I mean, and I think you're spot on when you say this too. Is there's not many places on the river that you actually haven't fished before.
No, yeah,
pretty much covered at least one time down the road. You pretty much covered pretty much every area of that river, so you know it almost like the back of your hand.
Right.
Yeah. Now, another question is with you being from the north, do you fish a tube down south?
Who asked that one?
That was a guy named Chris.
Yeah, we throw a tube.
That's not Chris McDowell either.
Oh, I was gonna say Chris McDowell doesn't need my help out on the river. I don't know if he's watching or not.
No, he don't.
A tube's almost kind of a forgotten tool in the tackle box nowadays.
Yeah, tube. All I'm gonna say is if there's smallmouth in that body of water, they'll eat a tube. That's
Yeah.
all I'll say.
I seen something that, and which you might already do this, Josh, but I seen something that was interesting to where a dude hooked or rigged up a tube, right?
Hmm.
But he put a rattle, he pushed a rattle up into that tube. Have you ever seen that done?
So something we did when I was little, and it may be similar, but there was a little tackle store up by where I grew up where they actually made a tube jig, but it had, because you know how there's extra space inside the tube, but it had a rattle like on the hook,
Yeah.
kind of like you can get a jig with a rattle on the back, but that wouldn't fit inside the tube. So what the guy did is he had taken a rattle and like put it up the shank of the hook, up right
Yeah.
under the jig head, so it would fit inside the tube. So I've done something like that, but I don't know, if that's kind of what he was doing or if he just added it to the like right above the tube or something like that. But
No, it was actually, I mean, it was up underneath the tube, up like kind of what you were saying,
mm,
up against the jig head. I mean, you couldn't see it at all,
right.
but he would shake it and you could hear it.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that definitely, having a rattle in the tube, definitely could work because I know a lot of people like to utilize rattles for different things, but putting it in a tube is definitely something that can get you bit for
Yeah.
sure.
So, is there times to when, like with coming up, when you're wanting to have moving baits and stuff like that? Is there times to where you want it to have a rattle or a knock to it, uh, or do you want to have more or less of a silent?
For me, it's a lot of that's water clarity. So like right now, the water's really clear, so I'm not necessarily looking for something silent, but how loud it is doesn't matter as much to me right now. But when flood season comes, when we get the muddier water, when it gets stained, when it gets high, when it's moving really fast, that's when a lot of times I do better on baits that have a hard knock to them or bigger blades on a spinner bait, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Dadgummit. My phone won't let me scroll.
No.
Uh, so, is there a fish on Nickajack that you would want to catch that you have not caught before?
I thought you were going to ask me about drum. I was going to walk out.
No, that's Norman's question.
He's, he said Norman's going to put me on the spot. I said, why do you hate drums so much? I want to catch either a paddlefish or a sturgeon.
Yeah.
The paddlefish, unfortunately, I've only ever seen a couple. They're both dead. Um, and but the sturgeon, I mean, how cool would that be to land a sturgeon? We've seen them. They'll come up and jump. So we've seen them like that. But those are two fish I definitely have not caught that I would love to have a chance to fight. But fishing the way I fish, I don't know that I'll ever have a chance. So I may have to change things up to get those to bite.
Now, what was that fish you were talking about? Was that a paddlefish that you're talking about that somebody caught?
Yeah,
Years
right
ago?
next to me, he had a paddlefish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a paddlefish.
And you won't believe what he caught it on, though, Josh.
What?
He
Crankbait?
caught it on a crappie jig with 4 pound test line.
Was it a big paddlefish?
It was, I guarantee, is every bit of 60, 70 pounds.
Man, I can't even imagine how long that took him. That had to take forever.
So, uh, I mean, he got it up to he never got it in the boat, which I think on the Tennessee River, you cannot, I know it's either the sturgeon or the paddlefish. One of them you cannot you cannot put in the boat.
I want to say there's a season where you can harvest like one paddlefish. So my
Yeah,
guess would be that it'd be the sturgeon because I know you're supposed to call TWRA if you ever hook a sturgeon and let them come and look at it and stuff.
right.
Because I know the sturgeon were introduced, but I'll bet that would be the sturgeon. Maybe it's the paddlefish. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, so do you prefer to fish? Because I know that you fish like yesterday. You called us and you was on Altoona. I know that you've gone and you like fishing Parksville. Do you prefer to have current and fish in the river system, or do you like fishing those highland reservoirs and or it doesn't really matter to you?
Honestly, I think the Highland reservoirs are just a fun challenge. So those guys who can go out on those deep, clear spotted bass lakes and catch them, regardless, are just that's some kind of skill. Because I love going. Like I was at Altoona yesterday, like you said, Parksville. Been down to Chattahookem. I fished a lot, Hartwell a lot in college. Man, when those fish get out roaming on those balls of blueback herring, it gets tough to catch them. And there's guys that catch them every single day. So for me, with those lakes, it's more about the challenge of it. I love spotted bass, and I love trying to locate them. But I definitely would say I'm a river rat. I
Yeah.
love fishing current. I feel like current just makes sense to me. It helps those fish replenish a lot quicker. You know, you can fish the same areas a few days in a row, or
Yeah.
maybe a little bit longer than on a lake or something like that. So
Yeah.
Was that
So we got David Schultz and John Pate and Jamie Tankersley. So what's up, guys? And we want to also say something about Tank.
heck yeah,
Uh, Tank has also is another bait company, guys, that is in the Chattanooga area that has definitely helped all three of us to be able to stay out on the water.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and we cannot thank Tank. I mean, there's times that I've called Tank up, said, "Hey, I need you to. Do you have this?" And most of the time, he's going to have whatever you want. Um, but if it's not, he says, I just put an order in. It'll be here in a couple days. And uh, so, Tank, thank you so much for being there for us and having the baits ready for us to be able to use. So make sure you go by Fishtails if you're in the Chattanooga area as well. And I guarantee you, there's nothing in that shop that I mean he gets everything, and that's one bait store that, excuse me, it's a massive bait store, and he's got room for everything. So
yeah.
Yeah, and he has just about everything in there too.
And my wife would want me to say that there's a lot of times if you go in, there's a couple cute dogs there too. So
yeah,
yeah,
they do have some dogs that's in there that is for sure. But so to kind of get on back on the crappie deal before we kind of rabbit hold us, and so is the crappie still deep, or have you seen that they are starting to move shallow? Because I know that with the temperature that we've had this week, I don't know. I haven't been out on the water to know what the water temp is, but has the water temp started to drop even more?
yeah. So on the river today, I was seeing a lot of 55, 56 degree water,
Oh,
and and I really, I mean,
Poor fish.
there's a lot of guys who are a lot better at crappie fishing than I am. So let me preface it by saying that. But what I've found is these fish are definitely headed that way. We've got a couple schools right now that we've been catching them out of in that 20 to 30 foot range, but there's a lot of fish in 12 feet or less on brush piles, and we haven't got quite to that dock shooting bite yet that I like. I love shooting docks. I taught Norman how to shoot a dock last year, and he got really good at it pretty quick. But that we haven't seen a ton yet, getting it really back deep under docks. But I've been catching a lot of fish, over brush piles in that 10 to 12 foot range. But like I said, I'm sure there's guys out there catching them in 2 feet of water. I'm sure there's guys out there catching them 40 feet. That's the fun thing about crappie is similar to bass. There's a lot of those fish that are just they stay shallow or they stay deep year round, and the whole population doesn't move in and out like some of them do.
yeah. What's up, Aaron Vincent? But speaking of shooting docks, I want to be on the boat with you when they start hitting, or where you can start shooting them docks, because I want to see what that ACC rod does with shooting them up underneath some docks.
Yeah,
Because
I got. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
wished I had the camera going when that time when we pulled up, and we probably you skipped a crappie jig that probably went, I'd say 35 yards, that you skipped it, and it skipped about 4 or 5 times and then went way back up underneath it. And if somebody wasn't amazed of what they just done, they might have actually caught a fish.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta give myself a little crap for that one because I definitely missed a fish because I was so shocked that it went that far. But like I said, I'm not a pro at the whole skipping shooting thing, but it's a ton of fun and it's something that you can only get better at. And that's why I told you that same day I had that guy on my boat last year. He was a client. He came down from Michigan, actually, surprisingly enough. And we were doing a little crappie in the winter, and he. I swear he didn't even have to look. So there's some guys that when they shoot that dock, man, it's like they could sit there and talk to you and just be like that, and it just goes where they want it to go, and it's but it's a ton of fun, and yeah, that ACC stick is awesome, and
Yeah.
you can get those at Jack's and at Fishtails.
Yep.
I've done a lot of crappie fishing in the past, but
We will be next Friday, so you better get ready.
oh yeah. Uh,
Speaking of next Friday,
started doing a little crappie fishing once I got up here, and went out with Josh a couple times, kind of showing me a little bit about how to catch them crappie out here. And Josh says he's not a pro at what do you call it? Shooting docks. Well, somebody that has no clue until I went out with this man what shooting a dock was. He's a pro at it with me sitting back there watching him, and he says he taught me how to do it. I still don't know how to do it, but
at least you taught Norman.
I am going to learn this year how to shoot docks because if you're not familiar with what he's talking about, crappie fishing, it's basically the same thing crappie fishing, like you would skip a dock with a swim bait or when you fish a largemouth, where you're able to actually get all the way back 30, 20, 15, 20 feet back in a dock by doing it with a short crappie rod by kind of pulling it back and slingshotting it, right?
Yep.
So for everybody that doesn't know how to do it, basically you're slingshotting it underneath there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some guys listening that know how to do it.
But the most impressive thing I've ever seen when I seen him do that, I'm like, how in the heck are you doing that? And I tried it a couple times. I'm like, I'll just continue trying to get it on the edge until I get out here and practice with it a little bit. But he definitely is good at doing that.
Yeah, I told Norman about shooting some docks when I took him out last year, and he said, "What kind of gun are we going to shoot the dock with?"
Yeah, well, I did too. And Colin's also good at it. Of course, Colin does a good job at it as well. I think
I'm not that good. I mean,
but
you haven't really seen some of these guys that
But this man sitting next to me. And of course, I haven't fished with I haven't been out with a lot of crappie guys yet, besides yourself, and Josh. But I know fishing with this man sitting next to me here. I mean, he's freaking spot on when it comes to that shooting docks, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's see.
Thanks, John. John Pate, just keep up the good work. God bless Tight Lines, guys. So appreciate it, Josh. Appreciate you following us and watching every week. All of you don't know John Pate, good buddy of mine, good buddy of Colin's, down from the Everglades, and I've known John for a long time, and a great guy, really great guy. One of the best down in the Glades. And so, John, thank you, brother.
Well, and one thing that I want to say, kind of get back on your guide service, Josh, that I am very surprised, and I know you take like honor in this, and what I'm about to say is there's two things that when we first, before anybody touches the first rod, that you say a prayer. And I've told you countless of times that means the world to me. And and you don't see that, I mean, hardly at all from any other guides, because it shows me that you realize that you wouldn't be doing what you're doing being able to live a dream of being able to fish every day. One, if it wasn't for the good Lord,
Mm-hmm.
to give you the abilities and the capabilities to be able to do that. So, but then the second thing that I mean, it's that that happens while you're guiding is how many repeat customers that you have. And we talked about it the last time that we were out, and you're like, it's about like 60% of my clientele are repeat clientele. Now that, guys, if you don't know and haven't ever been out with a guide, I've been out with guides and stuff like that to where I'm like, I will never grace getting myself back into a boat with them. But if you're willing to go and spend the money on a guide and then have that day that you thoroughly enjoy to be able to have, to be like, hey, I want to go on and book my next trip. And like when last time we were out, you're like, yeah, the last guy that I just had out, he already booked 3 more trips with me. And so, but that's one thing that I really, because a lot of people just think that, well, Deck Talk podcast, so they just got their buddy out here and he's a guide. So they're trying to promote their,
Mm-hmm.
in which we are, we're trying to help. And, but we want people to realize like, it's not just that you're just a guide just to go and have to make the money. Which, I mean, that's your job. You got them to support your family and stuff. Um, but it says something when you have that many people coming back to you because they've enjoyed, they've learned things from you, they've been able to catch that PB, which it's not everybody that catches the PB, but um, I know we've talked about it. I mean, you've had, I mean, I'd say probably close to what 90 to 100 PBs that's been broke on your boat. I mean,
Yeah,
if not more.
that's probably accurate. Yeah.
Um, and but with that being said, I mean, you're also out on the water 300 days a week or a year, if not more.
Sometimes it feels like 300 days a week.
So, but that's one thing that I wanted to kind of to bring out, that people may not know is you go out and you book a trip with Josh, that the likelihood that you're going to be like, I want to get back out on the boat. I want to learn. He knows what he's talking about. He shows you what that he knows, and he puts you on some fish, and that's all people can ask for, brother. So
Yeah. Yeah.
kudos to you for the hard work that you put in on all that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. That's going back to the prayer. That's there's two things very important to me, and that's one of them. And then having my supportive family. And I know I was on a while ago on the podcast, and I rambled on about my family and stuff, but that's something that I don't take
Yeah,
for granted. And then it's like you said, the repeats is something I wanted that to happen because I wanted people. My goal is always to make each trip about whoever I've got out there, and sometime every day is going to be different fishing wise, but my attitude can be the same. That's kind of the one.
yeah,
When you're a fishing guide, you're almost feel like you're fishing a different lake every single day, but who you are is the thing that you can provide people every single day, and being as kind and courteous as you can. And so that's definitely something to try to do. And I'm very appreciative of everyone who trusts me to take them out there on the water because I know that they're spending their hard-earned money to go fishing, and I get to fish for a living, and it's only because of those people. So
yeah. Uh, John Pate said, "Didn't you go, Norman? Didn't you go crappie fishing with Dennis and on and Lake Placid? I guess
Yeah.
he's saying and Lake. Uh,
That kind of leading us into, I wanted to give a shout out to Dennis as well. Just a quick shout out. If you're in South Florida and wanting to catch some crappie, wanting to go catch some crappie, make sure to look up, call into myself's buddy, Dennis Crenshaw with, oh gosh, Lake
Lake
Placid
Placid freshwater
Charter
shark.
Chartering Guide, the spot on best in South Florida crappie fisherman and guide. So make sure you hook him Or give him a call if you're in South Florida and go out with him. He'll definitely hook you up on the crappie in South Florida as
Yeah.
well.
Jonathan says, I can't wait for my trip. Jonathan, you just need to call Josh up and just go on and book that thing.
I'm guessing that's gonna end up being in March or April because I know he wants to have that chance at that giant smallmouth. So I'm sure
Yeah.
I'll see him sometime around the spawn. That's just my bet.
But Jonathan, you need to go on and book that up because he's already booking into the spring. So
It is getting full. Let me
yep.
know. Let me know when you got a date in mind.
So with that being said, we've already had you on here, brother, for an hour and 5 minutes. So
Is that it?
uh,
Seems
I
like
know
almost
that
5 minutes.
Yeah.
you've been on the water all day, and I know that Caroline and Titus is looking forward to getting you home to where maybe you could spend it. If he might already be asleep, but
I don't know. He's not a good sleeper, and we asked the doctor about it on Monday, and she gave us the bad news that some babies are just bad sleepers. So
that's why they
unfortunately,
make
one of them.
that's why they make Benadryl. So,
Did
uh, but
you already go home after your trip today, or you got the boat out front?
No, I got to stop at the house and
So you
say
got to
hi to
stop at the
Caroline.
house,
She was
say
working from
hi,
home today,
do
so
a tuck and roll, and hit
that's
the road
right.
for over here.
That's right. Sit down and then immediately stand back up and head back over
There
here.
you
So, but
but guys, we're going to get off here, and I'm going to grab some more food, and then I'm going to probably take myself to bed because
Yeah.
10 o'clock, and then slinging cakes from about 2 o'clock. It is about that time. So,
Before we get out
but,
there, let's go ahead and ask Josh the last question. We typically and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh actually was our
first kid,
first guest on our first episode, and I believe this makes him our first repeat
second,
or second, the second repeat guest, I guess.
yeah,
But anyway, we asked him this question before, but we might as well go ahead and ask him again. What do you think, Colin?
sounds good.
All right. If you were to be able to fish with one person on your boat, and this person could be passed away or still with us, um, who would that person be and why?
oh man, that's a tough. I did not get asked this last time.
Oh, you did?
um, oh man, that's. I want to say my dad, but I get to fish with him a good bit. I my so my
Well, hold on, real quick. I'll let you think of that.
okay.
But I was speaking of your dad. This year, you
Yeah.
finally got to do something for your dad that has
Yeah.
been a bucket list thing for you. Do you want to talk about that for a second and kind of let you
Yeah.
marinate on that last question?
Yeah. Yeah, everybody watching is probably like, "Oh, he did something super sweet." No, I didn't do anything sweet. I just failed for so many years. No, so being a guy who's known as a smallmouth guide, you'd think the closest person to me, being my dad, would have caught a ton of giant smallmouth over the years, and you'd be wrong. So and on Nickajack, and I think in most of Tennessee, smallmouth they got to be 18 inches long to keep, and an 18 incher is a big smallmouth, and anything that 20 plus range, that's a good one. Well, he had never caught an over 18 smallmouth. And then every year for our birthdays, birthdays are 2 days apart. We book a trip, just the two of us, and we try and go catch him his first trophy smallmouth. And I failed like 5 years in a row. But this year, we literally fished for 8 hours, still didn't have it. And I was like, all right, here goes another year. We ran to one last spot. He sets the hook, and I thought it was a drum, which would have made Norman excited. But but it wasn't. It
Where's the
was
net?
right. It was a giant smallmouth, and I finally got my dad a trophy smallmouth. We
That's
we
awesome.
acted like we won the Super Bowl. We took about 10,000 pictures of it, and it was awesome.
Just
So
like my drums.
yeah, there you go. So my dad has now caught a trophy smallmouth, and that was super exciting. But But honestly, I'd say going back to the question, my Papa Joe, he was my grandpa. He died when I was 8 or 9 years old. He always loved fishing. He left me a bunch of fishing rods that are still at my parents' house. But that'd probably be if I could pick one person, I'd probably go fishing with him. At least just getting to go with him one time,
Good.
especially knowing what I know now about fishing. You know.
Yeah. Man, I thought for sure, Norman, he's going to say me. I thought. but but yeah, man, Josh, man,
From
we
now.
cannot
Yeah.
uh, we could not thank you enough to come back on here, and we got to pick your brains a little bit about some smallmouth, about some crappie, and uh, and go down quite a few rabbit holes.
Yeah. We're
And
good. We're good at going down rabbit holes.
Yeah. No
yeah,
doubt.
I said it before. We should have named the podcast Rabbit Holes, and we would have fit in just right. So,
Mm.
but man, Josh, I wish nothing but the best with you and the guide service and Caroline and Titus, your mom and dad, man. I thoroughly enjoy the time that I've gotten to spend with all of them,
Mm.
and so, but we definitely need to make time to again to be able to maybe go watch another ball game or something like that for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds great. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah.
I look forward to it every time, and you guys, you're doing a great job with this podcast. So
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, and if all I need is, we have, let's see, it's 11, little over 1,100 people on right now. I just need half of y'all to go, and I've got on the bottom right there. It says on Facebook and Instagram, Chattahookem Fishing Charters. Go to his page and start following, and I guarantee you're going to be amazed of all the smallmouths is that he's posting up on there with his clients and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so just go and start following, grow that channel, and I guarantee you're going to watch it and you're going to be like, all right, I need to get on the boat with him. So,
Yeah.
uh, but guys, thank you again, and hope that y'all have a blessed day, blessed holidays that's coming up, and just remember the reason for the season. So, but guys, hope to see you out on the water and live the passion, guys.
Good, guys. Tight lines.